Now let's talk about contracting, pros and cons. So the pros of contracting, they may be cheaper in the long term because you don't have to legally cover all their benefits, vacation, training, and all of that. So in the short term, usually you have to pay them more per hour or per job, but realistically is that you don't have to cover all those expenses. So it may end up that hiring and contracting, after a certain amount of time, it kind of breaks even the amount of money that you spend. Now, also you have greater flexibility. This is true for two different things. For the amount of work that you have. So let's say that suddenly you have less work with no problem. You you just don't hire as many contractors. You don't really have to go through any firing or layoff process. But all you do is just hire less people. You have more work, no problem. There's a lot of flexibility just to go out there and hire as many contractors as you need to handle all the workload. Also, greater flexibility means that you can hire specific people for specific jobs. So let's say that as an employee, the employees that you have only have so many skills, but you require somebody that is very specialized in a specific area. Then you have a contractor gives you the flexibility that you can hone in and research the perfect person that can fix this specific problem, that can work in this specific project, and you don't have to train them because you already found that person that is already trained in this. So it's great for that type of situation. They're easier to fire. I mean, this sounds strong, fire, but this is what I just mentioned. Also, part of the flexibility is that you don't, for a contractor, usually you don't have any. It depends on the agreement that you have, on the contract that you have with the individual in terms of how you terminate a contractor. But in the smaller business, you usually hire them per job. So it's not so much that you're gonna fire them in the middle of the job unless they're really doing a horrible job. Is that what you're gonna do? Is you're just simply not gonna hire them for any future job. So that's how you fire people in contracting. So you don't really have to go through the really stressful and depressing process of sending somebody to your office and saying we have to have a talk, and the talk means they have to leave right now and pick their things and go home, and that's very stressful, especially if they have a family, blah blah blah. A contractor knows that if they don't work for you, well, they probably have other people that they can get hired. So they're not so dependent on your company to make ends meet. So it's not such a huge deal, and also gives you the flexibility of when somebody doesn't work, no problem. I'll just find somebody else. It won't be too hard to find somebody else, and that's it. That's how contracting world works. And not need to train. A contractor, it doesn't work for your company as an employee. You don't have any responsibility or duties to train a contractor. Quite the opposite. The contractors they take care of their own training, and that's why you're hiring them in the first place, because they've shown that they have the skills. You've seen that through their portfolio. You've been able to interview them. You've been able to see past work, ask other people that work for them, and you know that they have the right training. So you don't have to worry about spending money on training. And finally, less paperwork, because remember, you don't have to deal with their payroll, with their benefits, with their vacation time, with all these things that are very bureaucratic and required in many countries. The most, I mean, in my case, in most cases, sometimes there's not even paperwork. It's not required. It could be just a verbal agreement. At least, hopefully, there's some kind of paper trail, which could be an agreement via email, which could be used legally as a legal proof that there was an agreement. There should be at least some paperwork trace, but definitely there should be some kind of contractor's contract where everything that is expected in terms of what the work is expected, the rates, the revisions policy, whatever, the copyright policy, it's stated in this contract. So that's gonna be all your paperwork most of the time. Now there are cons, obviously, and as opposed to an employee, there's less loyalty. A contractor is not working for your company; is working for himself. It could be an individual contractor, as an independent contractor, or he could be part of a different company that contracts these contractors out. In other words, he may want to work with you next time or not, depending on his availability, which means that really if somebody else hire them for more money or they're too busy, you're not going to be able to hire them. And this may really suck if this guy was a great contractor, and this happens, really good contractors, in my case really good animators or writers or sound designers, they're always busy because they're really good. So they're less available. You may need them for a very important job, and you have to wait or lose the job because you couldn't find this person in time, he was not available. Also, they may say, well, if you want me to work on this job, I'm going to charge you more, I'm going to charge you double if needed, because now you really need me, I don't need you. So this is how it works in negotiations. Whoever has the less need has the power position. So in this case, they could say, I'll charge you double, and that's what you have to do if you want to get the job done. Less control over their work. Because they're not working under your roof, it's harder to see what they're doing. They may say they work 100 hours when they really work only 25 hours. How do you know? So this is tricky because, you can put a camera, or you just have, this really is based on trust, and you have to trust that they're doing what they say they're doing and that they're charging you a fair amount. This is why, in my opinion, I recommend not get charged by the hour, but by the job or project. So you say, okay, for this type of work or this project, this is the budget that we have. Is it good or not? And then you can negotiate back and forth a little bit. If they agree, then regardless of what it takes, boom, this is what you know exactly what they're gonna get paid. So it's not like you're gonna have a job that suddenly gets longer and longer, or they decided that, oh, this is a lot more difficult than I expected, I'm gonna charge you double. No, this is what you agreed. Obviously, when you hire good people communicate, and if there are any issues that were not expected at the beginning, you can renegotiate the contract based on facts. Okay, well, suddenly the client asked for a bunch of revisions that were not expected or not included in the original budget. So in our case, what we do is we split the extra amount that we charge the client. So part of it goes to Grumo Media, my company, and part of that extra budget that we were able to get to do extra revisions rightly goes to the contractor that is doing the job. Brand delusion. Because contractors are working for themselves, they're not really compelled or interested in promoting your brand, but their brand, which means that in many cases, a lot of the work that they do for you, they use in order to get work for themselves. And sometimes you should have this on your contract. What happens when the job is done? Can they use it on their portfolio? Should they put a link back to your website? Should they give you credit? Ideally, and this is what I've agreed with my contractors, is that I allow them to use the job that they do for us on their portfolios, because obviously sometimes we cannot hire them and they still need to get hired, and to get hired they use the previous job as bait or as proof that they worked before for other companies, as long as they give us credit and put a clickable link back to our site. So if somebody happens to see their portfolio, they know that the video was produced by Grumo Media, and if they want to find out more about Grumo Media, they can easily click on a link and find out more. Or if they want to, they can hire directly the contractor. It's up to them. The problem is that your brand gets diluted, because if they were an employee, you could easily have them sign something where you say, there's no way you can do that because you get fired, and probably it's not in their best interest, because now that they're part of your family, the more business your company gets, the more job security, the more business your employee has. So both interests of the employee and company should be aligned, where the interest of a contractor and and a contract, and the person that contracts the contractor may not be aligned, and that's the problem. Copyright ownership. So this is another thing that should be clearly stated in the contract. Who owns the intellectual property, the creative property, the copyright of all the work? And sometimes the contractor says, well, whatever I do, whether it's programming, designing, animating, whatever, belongs to me. Like I have the legal rights over it, not you. And this could be an issue. And so, for example, if let's say that they create a bunch of designs for you and you have not stated who owns the copyright on those designs, they may not allow you to use those designs anywhere else that for that specific job, which means that, or for the scope of that job. Let's say now that client that hired you to do those designs say, well, now we want to use them in other websites, in other marketing materials. We want to use them in a different video, on brochures, or a trade show. And then the contractor finds that you use them in several places where he did not give you permission to use them, and now he asks money for that. Well, this could be an issue, and he could actually seek legal action to get compensated for that. That's why it's very important to establish right from the beginning who owns that. Ideally, the company that contracts the contractor owns all the intellectual property, because it's going to make your life a lot easier. But if you have not discussed, agreed, and somebody has signed this, it may be an issue. So it's important to have that. Now, I'm biased towards contracting because of the company that I run is 100% remote. In other words, everybody works in different places of the world. This gives me and all the contractors a lot of flexibility. This gives me the advantage of being able to hire the best possible person regardless of where they are in the world. So I don't care if they're here in China and Australia. And I have experience working with people in almost every continent, which is great. You just find great talent. I don't care where they are, as long as they do their job. And so I love the flexibility. I know that this limits the possibilities of growing this company into a very big organization, because it would be just kind of a nightmare to have to hire people constantly. It's doable, and some companies do it. It's just not something I'm looking for. So I like it the way it is. My company right now is a $500,000 business in revenue, and it's all run by me and the contractors that I hire. I love it that way. It allows me to work from anywhere in the world. Right now in Madrid. In a couple of months, I'll be back in Vancouver, and it doesn't matter. That's great if you like this type of lifestyle. I finally, just to end this, I want to recommend a book by 37 Signals called Remote, Office Not Required, where in this book, they explain all the pros and cons of contracting, and how do you handle a company of certain amount of size with just contractors. If you don't know, 37 Signals has been a very successful 100% bootstrap company that started creating online software called Basecamp for online project management. Their founders are quite well known in the industry, and they've written several books. And Remote is actually a really good book for you to read if you're interested in running a 100% remote business like I am doing. So there you go. Hey, did you enjoy this video? If you want to see more like this, just subscribe here. If you want a free gift, click here. Yeah. Which one is going to be the one you